every time I talk about A2I dyslexia, I'm going to be honest with you, I do get very emotional, not as in tears, but it breaks my heart to think that we couldn't continue. And then sometimes I have to say to myself also, everything has a beginning and everything has an end. So if that was the end of it, then, then so be it. However, I wish we could have continued. It was all to do with funding and, at some point the funding was kind of drying up a little bit. And I remember one of our, somebody that used to mentor me. And at the time when I said, look, we might have to close, he was like, listen, don't do that. Just hang on in there and let's just see what we can do. Just hang on, literally just don't close. For me, Sarah, it was like, okay, this is going to sound really selfish. I worked for about 3 years with literally no pay. I'll be honest with you.
Only if you're ready. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to Divine in Egma, a podcast that talks about how to navigate through the complexities of the workplace as a modern day professional, while simultaneously having a side hustle. We appreciate all of our audience members for taking some time out of their day to tune into another episode and look forward to providing you all with some value through our show today. My name is Sarah and I will be the host for this podcast. This podcast will be available on all platforms where you can find podcasts, including Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, and we're also on YouTube. Now, before we dive in, I have a small favor to ask. Creating this podcast takes a lot of time and energy, and every bit of support helps me keep it going and growing. If you're enjoying the show, 5-star rate, comment on Apple Podcasts or Spotify can make a significant difference in helping new listeners discover us. Your support is invaluable in our growth journey. And if you're also watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss an episode. Want to show your appreciation more? You can even buy me a coffee through Buy Me a Coffee page. It's a simple way to support the show directly and helps cover production costs. Together, we can build an incredible community for ambitious professionals like you. Thank you for your support. It means more than you know. Now, let's get started. Welcome to Divine in Egma for the part 2 that we're having of our meetup. And thank you for coming onto the podcast again. So, we wanted to talk more about your CIC that you started. I think it was in 2018 or something like that. Was that right? 16.
It was 2015, but it wasn't registered till 2016. Yeah.
16. Okay.
15.
So 16. 16.
5.
Oh, what's it? Started in 2015.
15. Yes, as a support group. Yeah.
Okay. And then it became an official CIC. In 2016.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, talk to me about that. What made you start it? And I remember asking you, would it be something that you would envision starting again? Because I feel like there's some gems in that. And actually, because you pioneered a neurodiversity charity, I'm finding a lot are popping up, and you're kind of like you led the way, I should say, to see more Black neurodivergent people come together. Last weekend, I went to an event called Neo. I think that's how you say it. I'm probably saying it wrong because I'm dyslexic, but it was set up by this lady called Aquia Daniels, and she set it up recently to bring together Black neurodivergent individuals and the queer community. And it was really lovely just seeing like Black people actually talking about their lived experience about being neurodivergent. There was one lady there that was dyslexic, and it's even now, she's quite young. She was quite afraid to disclose her dyslexia. It was just so beautiful to see people were open about some abuse they went through, you know, because of their neurodiverse conditions, and that how their brain works, and actually having a safe space where they can talk about their experience and the intersection of being like a diverse group. So even though your business is not there, your legacy is kind of continuing because you've got a lot of young people carrying on. And I think Akira, she's only 24 years old, and she started this, and she's very passionate. She's autistic, and it's something that she's highly passionate about. So I just want you to know, Elizabeth, like, even though you're not carrying on with your business, you're actually helping a lot of young people carrying on the legacy. And it's just so beautiful to see, because when I came out of there, I was like, wow, like, I'm sure Elizabeth would just want to know, see this.
Oh, that is so lovely.
Yeah.
It's just beautiful to see it carry on. But every time I talk about A2I dyslexia, I'm going to be honest with you, I do get very emotional, not as in tears,
Yeah.
but it breaks my heart to think that we couldn't continue. And then sometimes I have to say to myself also, everything has a beginning and everything has an end. So if that was the end of it, then, you know, then so be it. However, I wish we could have continued. It was all to do with funding, and, you know, that at some point the funding was kind of drying up a little bit. And I remember one of our somebody that used to mentor me, and at the time when I said, look, we might have to close, he was like, listen, don't do that. Just hang on in there and let's just see what we can do. Just hang on. Literally, just don't close. For me, Sarah, it was like, okay, this is going to sound really selfish. I worked for about 3 years with literally no pay. I'll be honest with you. When I say no pay, I think the third year I started in like £500 a month. That can't even pay my rent, you know? And but I was still pursuing and still believed that it would, you know, this company would stand. So if we would have got funding not regularly, continuously coming in, we'd still be here today. And I'll be honest with you, one of my business mentors was like, you can't close a business because you're struggling at that moment. That's business. You have ups and you have downs. But when I was looking back, it was like, how long can I keep continuing with some months thinking, I don't know whether I'll get paid or not. I just couldn't do that anymore, you know? The one thing I do know is that everybody in the company got paid except the CEO, because you have to make sure everybody's okay, you know? Until it got to a point where I was starting earning regular income. But I think it was the fear of the unknown, thinking, what if I go back to where there is no funding to pay me, you know? And a lot of charities, except the very big ones, you know, the Oxfam and your Macmillan Cancer and Barnardo's and the very, very giant ones, they continue, you know, and I think just as well that funding keep coming and they're doing a great work for those that need it. But for someone like us, I think looking back now, I'm thinking, should I have continued part-time and got a job part-time or what? I just don't know. At the time, I just made a decision. It broke my heart. It did. It broke my heart.
I think with business, I never see anything and this is why you have to have this growth mindset and this entrepreneurial way of looking at business. And I'm still very new to business, so I'm learning every single day. I don't see anything as a failure as such in business. I feel like when something doesn't work out, all it means is feedback. It's like, okay, this doesn't work. What can I do to reiterate and change it and make it work? Entrepreneurship's not for everyone. And I always tell this to people, like, not everyone can run a business. It's not for everyone. And that's okay. We don't all have to be CEOs. Someone has to do the work as well.
Yeah.
But I also believe that if you want to get into that mindset of being an entrepreneur, you have to look at a business as you've got to look at a business as a way, where can I change or iterate to ensuring that I'm going to receive funding? Were there other methodologies that I could have taken to ensure that I got the funding for the business I was running? Would I have had to ask members to make payments? So I know with ADHD Babes, they rely heavily on funders, but they also ask their members to pay a very, very, very small fee. Others, they go to big corporates and get sponsorships. And they navigate that as well. They do crowdfunding and different things that you can do to try and pump and generate money into a business. But it's challenging, it's hard. And I know that there was a point, particularly around 2020, where there were a lot of initiatives given to Black business owners. And then now that's all dried up. No one cares about Black business ownership or giving money to Black businesses now. It's just like, okay, we did our Black squares during the pandemic because of the whole George Floyd situation. Now we don't care. Let's go back.
Now let's go back to normality, you know?
And
so I mean,
always,
because I think for me, the most worrying thing is the end of the month, staff needs paying. You got to pay your staff. Would you tell them, sorry, I've got no money to pay you? And that's not going to work. If it's just a one-man business like myself, I could decide, okay, well, fair enough. I'll just plod along this month, next month, whenever, until, you know, the funding or, you know, we heavily relied on funding in a way because, like, we were the only company that would, like, for example, giving free dyslexic assessment to the Black community at the time. A lot of our events and things, I think people didn't even have to pay. Everything was purely based on the funding, and it worked for as long as it did, you know. And then it just got to a point where, like I said, my business mentor, he was saying to me, stay put, stay still, don't close. And I'm like, then what? So what do I tell my staff next month?
I feel like it's good. Like it's good to tell someone to stay put and stay still. But what strategies or what mechanisms could you put in place to ensure that your business continues? You know, yes.
Well, actually, sorry to cut you there. There were some assessment were paid for. I mean, you know, there were a lot of people paying into it. Those that could afford it, they had to pay for the assessment. And then, for example, we had one charity called Black Thrive, and they would say, listen, for Lambeth residents, this is what we'd want you to do for them with this sort of, you know, funding. So there were paid customers, or paid clients, just so that I clear that up. So some parents will ring us up and say, listen, my child's got dyslexia. I don't know where to go. And then we can arrange to get the assessment done for them. There were tuition. Some people were paying for the tuition fees for their children. Some adults were paying for that. But it just wasn't enough to get the company taken over. To cut a very long story short, as a result, I was so ill. Can you imagine, worried constantly for about, I think we had a lot of pay, you know, people, staff to pay. And I was so worried. And I thought, listen, I can't live going to bed and thinking, God, what about tomorrow? What am I going to do? I can't say to my assessor, I've got no money to pay you, you know, even though money's coming in. But when you run a business, for example, you're paying the accountant, you're paying for your social media, you're paying for your bills, you're paying for, I mean, luckily during pandemic, we started working from home. So there was no rent to pay in that sense. But you're paying for all these niggly things that need paying, you know. So all those things as well, funny enough, they're all done through direct debit. So they're all going to go out before, you know. So when I realized that, listen, we've got to a point, I don't think this is going to work. And I had to be honest and be real. Then you just have to close the doors, and hey, it happens, you know. You've got Wilco, those that are not listening in the UK, a shop called Wilco that kind of disappeared overnight. We woke up and it wasn't there anymore. You've got Topshop, we woke up and it wasn't there anymore. You know, Debenhams, all these stores that had to close because of, and they didn't even have to rely on. So business is ups and down, and if it works, bingo. And if it doesn't, then it's come to an end. So for me, I give myself a pat on the back and say, listen, for someone who was known as a failure, who wasn't going to do anything in life, who was a write-off, to be able to manage to set up a business and help people, that's an achievement. Give yourself a pat on the back. Hey, move on, onwards and upwards to the next thing. Because I wish it was continuing. I wish it would be here till eternity. That wasn't the case. I mean, I've had people ask me, would you set it up again? I wouldn't be the front. I couldn't run it again. I was so ill with the whole thing. You know, the worry, the stress, the anxiety. I thought, I can't live like this. I just can't do it anymore. Yeah, so that door had to close, and it's so sad and it's heartbreaking. But it lasts for what it lasts for. And I think one thing that I keep hearing in the Black community is, oh, you were a pioneer that started this, and it's got so many people to kind of be so free and open to come forward. And that alone, it's a blessing. Not with the ego thinking, oh, I set this up and people followed, but with the ego that, listen, if somebody can Google 20, 30 years time, because Google's not going to shut, you know, the company down, Google's still there. And someone can say, oh, actually, there were Black people 30, 40 years ago doing this. And it's okay to be Black and have dyslexia. And it's okay to, you know, then I'm doing my bit. You know, it's the legacy still continues, hopefully.
And it still is. I mean, through the back of you starting your business, there's ADHD babes, there's neuro, there's a lot of other CTCs are popping up, and it's just so beautiful to see that the community is getting stronger and we are coming together. And it's not easy. But what I would like to say, what lessons have you learned, and what could you give to the newer generation of Black dyslexics and neurodivergent individuals today, the younger generation? What advice could you give them?
I mean,
from your lessons?
From my lessons, oh gosh, how do I put this? If you want to set up a CIC, listen, I'm going to clap for you and well done and go for it. Yeah. However, you got to be on top of be on top of the game. If I could do things differently, and I'm speaking for me, it's okay, that's done. I've done it and it's gone. But I'll probably run some sort of consultancy and get on with it. The back of my mind, I set up A2Y. Let me actually just rephrase that. I set up A2Y so that I can help people and support people, like the situation I was in when I couldn't find a job, like the situation I was in when I went to university and didn't have a clue what I wanted to do or where do I get assessment from, like those that were going through depression, anxiety, like those that, you know, really needed the support to even be free to speak about dyslexia, you know, and without your community pointing at you saying that, well, this one here, it's got some sort of mental issue or whatever, because I know some communities look at it that way. Also, the fact that, you know, it's okay to talk about dyslexia. I just wanted that space for people to feel free and open. And I think we achieved that in some ways. So going back to your question, if you want to set up a business to support people people in general or Black community, I would say that you've got to be on top of the game. Yeah, you've got to have if you want to do a CIC, you've got to have a really good, brilliant bid writer. Don't try and do it all yourself, because you're not going to be able to do all of it yourself. Now, we had an amazing bid writer. They were absolutely amazing, absolutely on top of the game. You know, they did everything they could. They were there to support us. They were my mentor, you know, and everything. And they're just amazing. You know, they did such a brilliant job. And then it came to an end. And that wasn't because of them. It was because more me than anything else. So the advice will be, listen, go for it. Listen, I would say do it. No matter what, I would never say to somebody, oh, I don't think you should because it's really difficult, it's this and that. Go for it. Make it work for you. If it doesn't, you tried, you dust yourself off and you try again. Listen, that's business, you know. I was recently listening to Simon Cowell's podcast, and I think it might be all right to mention names like famous people.
Yeah, it's fine.
I was listening to Simon Cowell's podcast of how he started at Britain's Got Talent and X Factor. Honestly, I was gobsmacked to know that at one point, he had nothing. Everything disappeared in front of him. And he had to go back and restart it. And look, it's standing today. So a lot of business stories will be, I started and it was working. In the beginning, it was so hard. Then in the middle, it got really great. Then it was brilliant. It was amazing. It just got to a point, it was like, actually, maybe it's not going to work or whatever way. Some businesses carry on forever and work forever and ever and ever. Look at Coca-Cola. Look at, you know, Colgate. Look at Quaker Oats. All these companies that stood for many, 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 many years. Don't ask me how they're doing it. There must be massive money behind this. You know, to do it. I've always said, if I was married to a rich millionaire, we'd still be running. I couldn't care less if I don't get paid. I'm helping my community. But that's not how it happened for me. So I would never say to somebody, oh, are you sure about it? Go for it. Do it. And it's better you start and do it and fail than you don't start at all. Because I have no regrets. I know I did it. Yeah.
I think when it comes to a business, not that I'm expert, but I read a lot of business books, and I know that it's very important, especially when you start your business, to start with a very strong foundation. And that means, for me, making sure that you have your initial go-to team. And sometimes in the early days, it is hard because you want to do everything yourself. But I honestly believe that, particularly if you're a neurodivergent business owner, you need to put things in place or mechanisms in place to ensure that your business is sustainable. So if that means from the start, I'm going to do what I can to get things like access to work or whatever I can so that I can get a PA or a VA to support me in my business venture and to help me get, those bids or those contracts in place. I'm going to do that, because if I don't do that, then I'll burn out, I'll get sick, and it doesn't become sustainable. So I think foundational where your business is the key, because sometimes, and that's just my view on it based on reading a lot of business books, is you've got to get your foundations right and then just build upon that. And you will come across challenges, but I think as the business grows, it gets easier. But if you're starting from a standpoint where it's just you thinking you should take everything on, it then becomes an impossible mountain to climb, because you're trying to run a business on your own. And the key is to always have in mind that this business is going to scale. It's going to be bigger than me. So I have to allow other people to do, good people. That's another thing. The right people, the good people, to run parts of the business that's better than me. And I think the key to a lot of the other people who are business owners, they get people that are better than them to run the business for them. We're coming very close to the end of the podcast. Have you got any final words, Elizabeth, to any neurodivergent people in the business world and also in the corporate world as well?
So just to say, all I want to say, if anybody wants to set up a business, it doesn't matter whether it says CIC, a limited by guarantee, a limited company, a self-trader, whatever it might be, do it. If you've got the capacity and you know that you can do it, do it. Because business is like a roller coaster. Some you win, some you don't. It's like that. Some days are great, some days are not so great. Now, and if that's how it happens to be, then that's how it happens to be. A lot of business owners will tell you, my goodness, I can't sleep at night sometimes. But hey, that's also a great thing, that, you are helping people in some way. Because business, no matter what the business is, it's helping somebody. This podcast we're doing today will help somebody. So I will say, just venture out and do it and go for it. And it will be successful at some point. Yeah. Or it may be forever.
And how do you manage that as a neurodivergent entrepreneur?
Right. As a neurodivergent entrepreneur, this is one thing that I want to say. Look after your mental well-being. It's so important. Because like I said, I fell into depression. I had panic attacks. And also when we finished, I was diagnosed with all sorts of things going on. I was so ill. Because I was so worried all the time. So look after your mental health. The business isn't everything. Outside of the business, you've got your family and things to think of. So look after your mental health. It's so important. And look after your well-being as well. In the beginning, it's all like, I really want to do this. You're so excited. You really want it to work. But you've got to look after number one, because when you're not there tomorrow, whatever business it is will probably still continue or not. So you've got to look after you as a person. And that's the one thing I've taken away. I could never put my business before my well-being, and that's what I did. And just to mention very quickly, I did get access to work support, which was brilliant. Hence why we could continue, because the admin support was really great in the background doing what they have to do. So yes, I would advise anyone and everybody, if you want to do it, but make sure that you look after your mental well-being and your well-being, and get the right people in the right places to support you with the business.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Bless you, and thank you for coming on to Divine Enigma. You've been brilliant, and your wisdom and insight has been fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Sarah.
I just want to let our audience members know about the 6-week coaching program that I'll be offering for people who are neurodivergent and who want to improve their career prospects in general, or those who want to get into project management. You can also be non-neurodivergent too. I mentioned this earlier in previous episodes, but I want to make the time to offer it up to those looking for help in those areas in their life, as it's a great way to learn new skills to help you advance in your career. I'm also offering my support to people who want to pass the Prince 2 practitioner exam or other project management exams, as I've taken and failed the test a few times, and I would like to help others by showing them how I passed. I also launched my membership, Neuro in which you get supportive community, career and business mentorship, monthly group coaching calls, networking opportunities, mental health well-being days, and unlimited body doubling sessions, and UK and very soon international meetups. I'm also working with the British Dyslexic Association and Lexic, one of the UK's biggest neurodiversity organisations, to ensure our members get free, full neurodiversity assessments, accredited with an educational psychologist or doctor. So if this sounds like you're interested to learn more, please reach out to me directly to talk more about the membership. Please follow me on all platforms where you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening to Divine Enigma. And if you got to the end, this is a safe place for project managers, professionals, side hustlers, and anybody who's looking to navigate the complexity of being neurodiverse in the workplace and the corporate space. I'll see you next time.